Hi, I'm Michelle Beckham-Corbin, president of C3 Creating Connections Consulting, a social media marketing strategy firm.
And I'm Mark Macomber, president of Macomber Creations, and welcome to our show, Digitally Speaking.
Glad to have everybody on board for this particular episode. And we have a guest today, Cameron-Corbin. Cameron is a junior majoring in political science at University of Cincinnati. Welcome, Cameron.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And in a minute, we're going to have you tell a little bit about yourself. But first, I just wanted to introduce the topic. Today's topic is on Reddit. And Reddit is a platform that I think in all of our shows, Mark, over the last couple of years, I don't think we've ever mentioned Reddit.
We've never covered it in any depth. We had little touch base
Maybe
on
mentions,
Reddit, but
right.
not really gotten into the blood and guts of Reddit, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. And for me personally, it's a platform that I tried using a while back, and I got turned off by it, and I'll kind of share why later. And I'm hoping Cameron is an expert on Reddit, and I'm hoping that the information that you share with us today, Cameron, will help me to maybe go take another look at Reddit and see how it might be helpful for me. But yeah, so it's just one of those that I really haven't spent a lot of time on.
So what you're saying is it wasn't as much fun as Candy Crush. Is that what you're saying?
I would say they're at polar extremes. That's a definite one. But anyway, before we move over to Cameron, I just want to give everyone just kind of a basic definition of what Reddit is. It's an entertainment, social networking, and news website where registered community members can submit content such as text posts or direct links. And I'll just kind of stop there, but just kind of give you some background. So before we jump into Reddit, Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you said before, I'm a third-year political science student at the University of Cincinnati. I've been heavily invested in the digital world as well as with computers ever since I was 3 years old back in the 90s with Windows 98, which was a much simpler time than now. And ever since then, I've always loved learning new different ways and how to utilize the computer and the internet to kind of further benefit yourself and kind of have a broader view on the world. And with the kind of invention of numerous social media sites in which information is processed a lot quicker and news travels a lot faster, it's exciting to see kind of the new advances in how news and stories gets to the public thousands of times more quickly than in the past. And we see explosive new results when that happens. We see a lot more crowd-funded kind of journalism, grassroots kind of projects that we didn't see before. And a lot of the citizen journalism is actually very helpful to the general public because it's free, unbiased media that will get to all the corners of the U.S. without having kind of a large network slant or bias implied with it as what news on a regular network, like the 6 o'clock news, for instance, exactly.
Oh, that was a really good explanation. And Mark, when he was sharing that, we did a show a couple shows back about kind of the sociological side of social media, and we talked a lot about digital natives. And what Cameron is that perfect example of that digital native that started using computers, at he's 3 years old, and then moving forward. So so it's really actually kind of nice to have somebody from your demographic here to talk about Reddit and kind of the whole the digital aspects of it. So obviously you are a user of Reddit. Would you kind of define yourself as a light user, moderate user, or a power user?
I would say probably a power user. I've been on Reddit ever since about 2008, a couple of years after the website first began. And I would say if there was a day that I did not check Reddit for at least 2 to 3 hours, it would be a very rare occasion. Most of my news and other world events that I learn about usually comes from the either news or world news sections of Reddit, which is very important for a political science student to be very up to date with the current events that are happening worldwide. And not only just for news, but also for local events that are occurring in your hometown or other content that people publish. It's very, very important to be able to be kind of involved in the daily dialogue in order to stay relevant, because if you're not relevant, then you're already behind. Every second that you try to catch up, someone's 2 seconds ahead of you. And so you always have to be kind of on the cutting edge of everything, just because the information is out there
It's
so quickly.
constantly
It's constantly changing. So yeah.
Well, so let's step back for a second. So, really what you're saying is that Reddit is a great source of information, up-to-date information, and information that lacks bias that you might traditionally find on, a particular news network or media outlet. So for folks that are trying to understand, what does Reddit look like? So, people are familiar with Facebook and what that looks like and how somebody would find information, and with Twitter, searching with hashtags. So if I wanted to find out something about, let's say, the recent Cincinnati floods, how do I need to belong to Reddit? With Facebook, you actually have to have a Facebook profile. Twitter, you can actually do a Twitter search without having an account. So how does one, what does that look like for Reddit?
Well, first of all, the fantastic thing about Reddit is that you don't actually have to create an account to view any of the content on it. All you have to do is just go to reddit.com, and you're already on the front page of the website. You don't have to register an email. You don't have to do anything.
Okay.
And if you don't register anything, what you have on the top are called subreddits. They're different links to different pages. For instance, there's a gaming subreddit about different types of video games. There's world news subreddit, as I said before, about news that occurs worldwide. There's a subreddit specifically about things that are interesting, such as today I learned, fun facts that an average person would not know about it. And it constantly adds new of the standard subreddits every 3 or 4 months or so after a community votes whether they are still relevant or they're not as relevant as when they were last voted in.
I was going to say, just jump in and talk a little bit about the voting. So you're saying that these subreddits are really kind of other topics on the website.
Correct.
And you're saying that the community of users are the folks who are dictating how long those topics maybe stay around or what they are?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
In the past couple of years, some of the standard subreddits that came originally with the website have been phased out due to lots of controversy, such as the atheism subreddit and also a comic subreddit that was kind of downplayed as having kind of sexist and sophomoric overtones. So that was removed to kind of create kind of a better general space. However, the standard subreddits, you can add more subreddits, custom subreddits, if you set up an account for yourself, which is just an anonymous username. It's very easy to do. It takes about 2 minutes. And from there, you can enter in pretty much any subreddit that you can think of, such as Cincinnati has its own subreddit. And as you were saying before, to learn about the recent floods, many people that live locally would post aerial photographs or news site links to that page about Cincinnati. And currently there's 6,000-7,000 plus different subreddits, and there's more being created every single day.
When you were mentioning that, I was kind of imagining, Mark, like a website, and you've got so many different posts at the top or categories. I'm shocked that it's like 6,000 or 7,000. That's amazing.
Yeah, and the really nice thing about Reddit is that each subreddit is individually owned. It's not owned by the company. For instance, the person that creates the subreddit is the first mod and can create other mods of it. Moderator, correct. And they pretty much are the curators of all the content on it. So if they can set up rules, and if they deem content to be offensive or inappropriate, or comments that are either sophomoric or inappropriate or kind of deviate from the goal of the subreddit, they can either restrict commenting to approved submitters, or they can make it public and then delete the comment if it's inappropriate or remove the submission if it's inappropriate. And so that way, you don't have kind of the authoritarian figurehead of the executive team of Reddit controlling everything and moderating everything, because if they did that, if things got removed, there'd be massive backlash against the corporation. And instead, there are volunteer moderators that do it, and it's a lot more effective because you have thousands of different moderators for all the different subreddits combined. And it's absolutely fantastic, because when you have a bunch of volunteer moderators that live in different time zones, you can remove content that may stay up on Facebook or Twitter a lot longer without someone actively curtailing it to make sure that that content doesn't exist, which is absolutely fantastic. And the really, really nice thing about the comment section is that each time someone comments, you can either upvote it or downvote it. which kind of goes into the entire voting system. When someone deems a post, a submission, or a comment relevant, they can upvote it, which will give it 1 point and will give it the ability to rise higher in the stack of comments. Some submissions can have as many as 20, 30,000 comments. So if it is not anything special, or if it's really kind of an inappropriate comment that kind of takes away from it, it'll get pushed down and nobody will be able to see it, which is fantastic because it's kind of a way of voting the best content to the top and keeping all the rubbish at the bottom so that nobody bothers, with the trolls pretty much.
Right, which is really just a great example of crowdsourcing, right?
Exactly.
So you're letting the community dictate what's really relevant by giving them the ability to keep that content in play.
Yep.
So that sounds really kind of
Well, I love that, especially because not anything against the broadcast industry, but traditionally they're paid very heavily to spin things. So this is a cool platform that allows things to kind of, the cream rises to the top. But what's interesting to me is that it has a competitive nature to it also. That people who would be posting things there would be something to getting your score and getting these things higher, and people who would be subreddit posters or moderators, if you will, are able to keep trying things on the market and the demographic to see what's responding. It's a really interesting thing from a marketing standpoint, because it's such a comprehensive umbrella that falls under this, and the fact that it isn't spun, and that it is actually the user that is using the platform in lieu of advertisers, like on some of the other platforms. How much money can you throw out? Nobody's going to see it unless you put a bunch of money behind it, and maybe you'll get to these amount of people.
Right.
This seems to be a much more, how shall I say, level playing field for getting information out and about, and it's pretty cool. I've not spent a lot of time on it, but I have looked at it, and it's interesting that the younger demographic, younger generation, is using this as maybe possibly, as you quoted, this is your personal private source for all the kind of information. It's so customizable that you can just say, hey, well, I have no interest in, Philadelphia baseball, but I want to see how the Reds are doing. I want to see what's going on in my area, and I've got to have more interest in foreign affairs than I do in West Coast affairs. So you can streamline everything right to your personal needs or use, and it's great for a poli-sci major who's going to be the next president of the United States to really get the hot topics and really be up on current foreign affairs, because often the spin that we get on foreign affairs is through single source, sometimes multiple source, if you have the time and inclination. I think the fascinating thing to me was you spend 2 to 3 hours a day on Reddit.
Yes, I do.
How do you find the time?
Well, the best thing I would say to do is just buy a second monitor. I have a laptop and a 32-inch TV monitor kind of set up. So on one side, I have kind of the homework that I get regularly as a political science student, a lot of projects, a lot of PowerPoint presentations about current world affairs. Specifically, right now, what we're focusing on is the conflict in Ukraine over Crimea, which is very prevalent in the political science field.
Yeah, sure.
And what's really nice is you can have a kind of a live stream of world events, kind of a ticker in the right side on one monitor, and then kind of have your presentation on the left side. And it's really nice to be able to see events unfold in real time and be able to add it to your presentation and discuss it with a class of 50 to 60 people the next day. And the really great thing is that Reddit is so prevalent among college students that if you see one post, there's a very good chance that everybody else in the class will have seen that same exact post and will kind of be on board with the discussion. So I think it also has a very beneficial role in the role of a college classroom as well, because it just kind of puts out that more information and kind of advances the classroom discussion to a point where it goes beyond just like reading word for word verbatim out of a textbook, which doesn't really add anything to it because people will doze off and not really pay attention. So it's absolutely fantastic. It's made classroom discussion so much better, in my opinion, over the past couple of years.
Oh, sure, because you can get to the real time.
Exactly.
It's like the old stockbrokers, man. They had their ticker tapes. They were watching every move, and it's similar because this platform now just gives you real time everything. Exactly. And what a great way to get information. What a great way, especially if you're focused on something, political science or whatever it may be, that you can really customize the site to get exactly what you need. And in a business level too, to keep an edge on your competition. So
Well, and that's what I'm probably jumping ahead because I have so many just even platform questions for you, but just kind of dovetail off of what Mark just said about business. Obviously, we operating in the business realm would love to know how Reddit might be useful for us. And I know I've heard you say before the show started that the Reddit community is very against blatant marketing.
Yes.
So if you could kind of speak to that and then maybe follow up with how could a business use Reddit? And I understand that Reddit's their user base is 18 to about 30. That's
Yes.
kind of the majority of the users are in that demographic, but obviously as they continue to grow older, they're not going to give up Reddit. So I see that base growing. But yeah, if you could go back to answering that question, that would be awesome.
Yeah, the best way to describe advertising in Reddit would be that the overall community is very against astroturfing, which is pretty much...
Astroturfing?
Astroturfing, yes. It's a term that describes an attempt by a PR company, often hired by large corporations, to add kind of very specific advertisements and kind of describe it as personal posts. For instance, there was a company that I'm not going to name for legal reasons.
Science major free law, yeah.
Yes, that bought several accounts from people that were a couple years old, which is
Reddit
which is technically illegal and against the terms of service, and began posting pictures of kind of nature photos with their product kind of placed in the background and kind of posted as kind of an accident. And they framed it as, I was walking my dog, look at this fantastic bridge that I found in the middle of the woods, and there happened to be a can of a certain soda right next to it, and people did not respond very well to that, and that post went down as being one of the most downvoted targeted advertising posts in the history of Reddit. But on the other hand, what is very popular in Reddit is for a company to produce such thing as like a viral video, for instance, or a viral picture, and kind of have it gain traction on other social media websites such as YouTube or Pinterest, and then have other users pick up on that
and
then
share
post
it
and
on
then have
Reddit.
exactly.
But it's really not. It's not originating on Reddit.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And the really great thing about that is that people can pick kind of the content that's coming from these advertisers that's truly creative and truly interesting, and not just something that says, our product is better than the other guys, buy it. Look how awesome we are. We know how to use Reddit. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's all about creating really creative content that is special, that people will find it is worthy to post on there, and from there it'll gain traction.
I need that quote. That was a great quote. Really for all social media platforms, but that's great. Yeah.
Exactly. And another really great way, kind of detracting from that, is a process called an Ask Me Anything,
Yes.
or an AMA. And what a lot of companies do is that they have either their CEO or somebody from their executive team that kind of wants to talk about their company. They get with the overall moderators of the entire website, the people that actually work for Reddit, and set up a date and time on the Ask Me Anything subreddit to kind of have people come and ask questions, and they'll answer them as much as they can. And for instance, large corporations...
And asking, just for the viewing audience, in a text-based format.
Correct, exactly.
Commenting.
And the really crazy thing is that corporations are not the only people that do that. There are specific celebrities that do that as well. For instance, in the past we've had anyone from President Obama to Arnold Schwarzenegger.
President Obama did
yep.
an Ask Me Anything.
Yes,
Reddit?
President Obama, actually, he still holds the record as
while he was president.
While he was president, it was 2010. Yes, he actually holds the record as the largest and most commented on Ask Me Anything in the history of Reddit, and it was so large that in the middle of it, it actually broke the Reddit website. It actually crashed several times.
Too much.
There was too much traffic going to it, and their servers couldn't handle it. And so that was absolutely amazing. From that point on, before that, Reddit wasn't really in the national spotlight. A lot of news organizations really kind of focused on it as more of just kind of like a fad or something that's not really going to take off. But the fact that it gained legitimacy from when the president used it, from then it was, ingrained in kind of our culture and became something very important. And after that, many news organizations began to use, stories and content that was posted on there in their actual lineup. So
you mean kind of saying, So a traditional media is saying, hey, we got our source is Reddit.
Exactly, which
Wow.
is insane because Reddit started out by aggregating and curating information from traditional news sources, and after that, it kind of changed paths to where news organizations and other websites that cultivated the news actually began taking their information from Reddit, which is a
Wow.
massive change
Boy,
in
that's quite a
the
switch.
direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the really crazy thing about Ask Me Anythings is that anybody can do it. I know I've mentioned Arnold Schwarzenegger and President Obama, but there's also other people that are a lot more small-time people, in which they move from the AMAs, which are the Ask Me Anythings, to the IAMAs, which are more of the small. Yes, it's
I am a social media strategist.
Exactly, and it's usually single people, and they're usually in a much smaller setting. And the really interesting thing is that it's a lot more kind of differential, I guess, in between the different careers that you can have. For instance, we've had people as varied as vacuum cleaner repairmen and plumbers to college students that are working at fast food restaurants, and they'll
To
answer
talk about what they
Exactly.
do on their job.
And the crazy thing is that the vacuum repairman became one of the most popular independent IMAs in the history of Reddit, which is very surprising because if you think about it, when was the last time you went to a repair shop to fix your vacuum cleaner? Which is, the average 18 to 30-year-old is not going to, go and say, I want to buy a $500 Kirby vacuum cleaner and I need to buy some bags and replace the belts in it. And but it was very popular, and he was happy. He stayed actually 3 hours past when he said he was going to finish, and managed to answer every single question, and varying from which vacuum cleaner can I get the best value out of to which do you think is a waste of money? Do you think the Dysons are a waste of money? And the funny thing is that he said yes, the Dyson, the $600 Dyson is a waste of money, and you can get much better vacuum cleaner for $200 cheaper than that, and it was absolutely fantastic, and it was so popular that he actually came back and did 2 more IAMAs after that because so many people had questions.
This totally fascinates me. So let me ask you a question. Was he popular because of the content that people really wanted to know about vacuum cleaners, or was it his style in the way that he shared information or the way he answered questions? What do you think?
I think it was a little bit of both. First of all, the content was unique. He was the first vacuum repairman to ever be on there. But the second, the most important part was the way that he conducted his answers. First of all, he made it a point to answer every single question on there. And second of all, it was the way that he worded his responses. They were very well laid out. For instance, he was a very technical person, but he was able to explain what he was discussing in very layman's terms. It was very easy to understand. And also another huge selling point was that he was able to take pictures from his vacuum repair shop in order to explain the different models of vacuums that he was talking about, in order to kind of convey, okay, you should buy this brand of vacuum cleaner, here's a picture of it, and here's a general price tag and how long it might last, which is very popular.
Very savvy guy. I
Exactly. Yeah.
assume it was a guy. I should not say
It's a Maytag man to the 4th power kind of system.
Wow. Any other IMAs that really resound with you? I mean, that's fascinating about the vacuum. And before you even answer that, Mark, I'm thinking with your whole project, that would be really cool for you to get on and do, Ask Me Anything about, because your project is a whole movement.
Yes.
I think we found a Reddit consultant.
Oh, there we go. He's going to be a lawyer too, which I'm pretty good. You always use a good lawyer,
Oh, so Cameron, have you experienced anybody from a because obviously vacuum cleaners are a business, but any more traditional businesses coming on to talk about their products or their companies? Like a Kraft or a Procter & Gamble or anybody like that you personally got to experience?
Yeah, the thing with larger businesses, though, is that the bigger the business is, usually it's not going to be like the CEO or the executive team. Often there is a manager or somebody, middle management or so, that comes and talks about kind of the company. And there was recently, a couple of years ago, there was somebody from the Coca-Cola Corporation that came and kind of talked about a bottling plant and how it kind of worked and how much how many bottles went through, and people were very fascinated with it. And he was able to provide a lot of different media links. For instance, several videos that National Geographic came and did, and that were freely available on YouTube. And he was able to link that and show people kind of how the process worked, because a lot of people, go to a grocery store and they get a 12-pack of, Coke, but they don't understand how it got there, and it's a very complicated process. And the really great thing about Reddit is that there were several industrial engineers in the comments that were also adding to what he was saying. For instance, kind of adding some information onto the technical side about some of the chemicals that went into the Coke as well, not just kind of the overall process. So it was absolutely fantastic, because they added another.
So you get these other experts
Exactly.
who might even be unknown to the person doing
exactly.
the talk, who jump in to share their expertise as well.
Exactly. Yep.
That's really, really fascinating. Now, I would think, since this is an open forum, and you said that you don't have to, you can register to use the platform, but it can be anonymous. Are there situations where people will jump in with things to try to derail the conversation, or is that where the downvoting comes in and whatever they say just gets pushed?
Well, the thing about registering is you can read everything on Reddit without registering, but you cannot comment or create submissions without registering. And the whole nature of Reddit is that unless you specifically put your name or specifically state in one of your comments who you are or where you're from, it's pretty much anonymous. It's very hard to figure out who you are. And so, yes, that does present a lot of problems for people that are there to disrupt the kind of flow of the comments. But that's the great thing about Reddit, is that their voting system, a lot of people will see a comment that is very sophomoric or inappropriate, and they'll downvote it immediately.
Okay, so that's how that's taken care of.
And as a general rule, unless you change it in the settings, after about 5 downvotes, it's hidden, and you have to actually click on a button to be able to see it. So if it gets enough negative votes, it'll pretty much be hidden.
Okay.
And so it'll be very difficult for anybody to actually see their content.
And the other thing that I love about this is that, because of the nature of the platform, in addition to answering questions and commenting, you have that ability to share that content, as Cameron mentioned, the links and the videos and the photos and everything. Now, we've talked a lot, and we're just about out of time, but I wanted to bring this up because we've talked a lot about how Reddit is just such a great information source. But Reddit has done some wonderful community things as well, and I just wanted to share too. A couple of years ago, they did something called Reddit Secret Santa, where people could sign up to get a gift for anybody in the world and do an exchange. And so it was actually the largest Secret Santa gift exchange ever done in the history of all of this. And then the second piece, which I find really interesting, is something called Random Acts of Pizza, where people will post a story, maybe they're homeless or just something needy in some way, and other people will order a pizza for them using online and have it delivered to where they are based on the story that they're hearing. So this has just been an amazing subject matter, and I just want to say thank you, Cameron, for being on the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And I think you've inspired, at least I know for myself, to check Reddit out and see how that might be useful for my own information source.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much for coming today and enlightening our audience. As always, we are on the cutting edge here at Digitally Speaking. So thanks to ACTV to produce our show, and thanks to all you at home and the viewing audience to continue to come back and watch us. So on behalf of Michelle and I and Cameron, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.